It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. It's the only daily boxing talk show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
Coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're listening, whenever you're watching, I hope you're doing A-OK today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. Or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. And today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can pick up a copy of this book while you're watching or listening to the show. Really, like right now. Just go to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com and search Tom Molyneux. Or you can go to our website for a signed copy. Just click the book. And if you're looking to get more than one copy, just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing. That's TALKINBOXING.com. And, of course, the website, billycboxing.com. Programming note, we will not be doing a show tomorrow. But we'll be back better than ever on Wednesday. And speaking of Wednesday, scheduled to join us, Boxing Hall of Famer and my man, and also New Jersey Boxing Commissioner Larry Hazard, as well as the return of Alex Perpali and our blast from the past, which this week will be the one we were going to do last week, former World Heavyweight Champion and Boxing Hall of Famer, as per request, John L. Sullivan. But today, a little bit later, we got... my man Dax Khan scheduled to join us, give us his thoughts on the fights from this weekend. And we'll be talking about that. Also, Deontay Wilder continuing to talk smack. Is anyone listening besides him? Is he doing it to convince himself? Is he doing it to try to sell tickets? I mean, we talked about last week how the Barclays Center is still half the seats are available for this big event, which is being deemed a big event anyway. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But before we get into the results, our thoughts, prayers, and condolences go out to the family and friends of Scott Westgarth, 31 years old. He won his fight in Doncaster, England, over this past weekend. And during a post-fight interview, felt strange and ill. The interview had to be cut short, and he was rushed to the hospital and died shortly afterwards. So our prayers and condolences goes out to the family and friends of Scott Westgarth. Another death as a result of the sport of boxing. Sad when that happens, but in any event, I wanted to talk about the fights from this weekend, and first and foremost, in the super flyweight division, Saur Rungvisal improved to 44 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw, with 39 of his wins coming by knockout. When he fought to a majority decision over Juan Francisco Estrada in what I thought was an extremely entertaining fight. The way the judges scored it, 114-114, and the other two had it 117-111 and 115-113 in favor of Saur Rungvisal. I had it more. I scored the fight 117-111 in favor of Rungzaval. I thought that he won the fight as much as I picked and thought that Juan Francisco Estrada was going to come back. I thought, unlike what they were trying to convince us on the broadcast, I thought Rungzaval won the fight. To me, this guy is a vicious fighter. He's a vicious fighter. I can't, I'm sitting here and I'm watching the fight Saturday night, and I'm saying to myself, what's the best word? If I could come up with one word to describe this guy, what would it be? And to tell you the truth, the word that pops into my head is vicious. This guy's a vicious fighter. He works the body like no one else. Never seemed to get tired. They're saying, he's running out of gas. I'm going, what fight are they watching? This guy's not running out of gas. Never changed the look on his face. Never changed anything. Was the same as he was in the first round as he was in the final. And I thought he deserved the win. And Juan Francisco Estrada feels, who dropped to 36-3 with 25 knockouts, feel he won the fight. He said after the fight, I felt I won. I boxed and attacked the last 3 rounds. I don't know what the judges saw. I want a rematch. The problem is, what about the first 9 rounds? And I'm not suggesting he lost all of them, but I gave that. Listen, they were disagreeing with the broadcast, but I gave most of the first 7 rounds, all to Rungzaval. I thought he was landing the harder punches, and you gotta count body shots. I'm sorry, you gotta count them. Joining me right now from St. Simons to get his thoughts, my man Sal Rocky Senecola. This kid's vicious, Sal.
Well, vicious, and another word comes to mind: relentless. I mean, the guy, was throwing punches. He was trying, and as you pointed out, he did work the body, and it was a great fight on some levels and good exchanges. But yeah, I gave a lot of those early rounds. I thought that he dominated as well. He did enough to win the rounds, and he pushed the fight. He was great countering and made it happen. So it was a good fight. Good fight, but I did give him the victory.
Yeah, I thought it was a good fight, and then to tell you the truth, Juan Francisco Estrada could have won the fight, but
could have.
The truth of the matter is he didn't put his foot on the gas pedal until the second half of that fight. Now, I don't know why a team would orchestrate a game plan that is such a gamble like that. I get it when people say, this fighter's known to run out of gas in the second half of the fight, so maybe you want to not give it your all in the first half, let him run out of gas. But there's too much risk going on. You can't count on a referee to score it the way you think it's being scored. I mean, the bottom line is, why pussyfoot around? Why not take the fight in your own hands and get it done? Listen, if Juan Francisco Estrada felt that he was robbed because he came on so strong in the last 3 rounds, I would be asking him this today. I'd be saying, well, what about the first 7-8 rounds, brother? Why weren't you putting the foot on the gas then? You know what I'm saying? Why would a fighter risk losing on the scorecards by ultimately devising a game plan, Sal, that really focuses on the second half of a fight?
No, well, that's the whole thing. You can't always anticipate or expect, if you're going to think that fighter's going to be running out of gas. And in hindsight, we'd be looking back at Muhammad Ali when he fought Joe Frazier, when he fought George Foreman and introduced the rope-a-dope to everybody. He felt that George Foreman, he had a calculated risk that this guy never went past 7 rounds, and we're gonna take him into the later rounds, and we're gonna expose him, and we're gonna do what he did. And that's on a different level to some degree, but maybe not. This guy thought he was going to take him maybe into later rounds, put on a good show and close the show, but it wasn't enough, because I think they had more in him in those later rounds than Estrada anticipated.
Well, just staying on that thought process for a second, and yeah, I mean, Muhammad Ali incorporated the rope-a-dope, which really was a dopey move on his part. Didn't tell anyone, but when you look at it, the only way to successfully do something like that where you give up those early rounds is to win by knockout, Sal, and that's
Well,
exactly
you're right.
what Ali did. I mean,
That's what Ali did.
you know, the truth of the matter is that, you know, Ali took a chance, but he knew that he had to win by knockout because he gave up those rounds in the beginning, and you weren't going to win it on the scorecards. You know, so if you're going to give up a fight, give up the early rounds, which I totally disagree with, but if you're going to do that, you got to clearly go for the knockout. And I'm not so sure Estrada was. I mean, yes, there were times he was landing some shots, but this kid, Rungzaval, never stopped coming forward. And let me tell you,
relentless. That's the word that came to my mind, Bill. Relentless.
You're right.
The guy just kept going.
Relentless, vicious. I mean,
I love this. He fought a nasty fight. That's what you got to do. You got to fight to win. You're not going to be Mr. Congeniality. Hey, you know, excuse me. Forget about it. You got to be rough and tough and be ready to win and turn it on.
Well, I'll tell you what, the fight was entertaining, and I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch. And if those are the kinds of fights that the fans want to see, I say give it to them. Why make them wait around? I mean, you have two big names. Estrada, you know, wasn't blown out of there, and a rematch would be interesting to see. We saw what Rungzaval did in the rematch with Chocolatito, and he destroyed him in the second one. It would be curious to see how he fares against Estrada if they would meet again. Also on that card, in a spectacular performance, and the fans were booing him, but IBF flyweight world champion Donnie Nietes improved to 41-4. 41-1 with 4 draws, with 23 of his wins coming by knockout, and he picked up the 23rd KO of his career when he took care of business against Juan Revco. The truth of the matter is that a short shot at the end of the 6th round put Juan Carlos Revco in some serious trouble. And for all intent purposes, his corner could have considered stopping the fight right then, but they didn't. They let him come out for the 7th. It was clear that Juan was still in some trouble as he all of a sudden was putting on the Fred Astaire moves, trying to get his feet. I mean, he was walking like Herman Munster, Sal. He couldn't put one foot in front of the other. And then, Nietes poured it on. I mean, this was a guy that was really showing his skill set in terms of what I would say sharpshooting. I mean, this guy was accurate and precise with his punches. All of a sudden, he became a headhunter and finished the show, dropped Revco again. And the referee was about to let him continue. He came up. He wasn't really responding to the ref, but said he wanted to continue. And the ref was about to let him continue, but rightfully so. Revco's corner said to stop it. And the fight did not continue after that, giving Nietes the win. Very impressive win, especially for a guy in that weight class as old as he was, like we talked about on Friday, Sal.
Absolutely. I do like those older guys when they come on and they show everybody how much they want to win. No, it was a good fight, entertaining fight. And Nietes really poured it on. He closed the show in good fashion.
Yeah. They talk about the Filipino fighters, and obviously Manny Pacquiao comes to mind. This guy is not a Manny Pacquiao style fighter. He doesn't come and just want to take your head off. He's more of a tactician, and I think it's enjoyable to watch, and I think that's why he's lasted as long as he has. And he's a name that people, for some reason, don't give the credit. 41-4 with 4 draws, and you can make the argument that those 4 draws could have all been wins. But also on that card in the super flyweight division, McWilliams Arroyo improved to 17-3 with 14 knockouts when he won a close. One had it even, 95-95, while the other two had it 98-92 and 97-93 in favor of Arroyo. I'm not so sure I agreed with this score, and I can't understand why it was so. I mean, I could see it 95-95, but the other scores 98-92, 97-93. I don't know if I can agree with it. I wasn't ringside, so maybe I wasn't getting the feel of the harder punches. Cujas just seemed like he should have thrown more punches. I'm wondering if he took McWilliams Arroyo lightly, Sal.
Yeah, I think he may have. Because I looked at that fight, and I'll tell you what, Arroyo was coming on, and he was throwing those punches in the pockets, and it was a good fight. And Kudras looked at moments a little tired or a little bit, I guess, surprised about seeing how Arroyo was coming at him or so. So I think it was a good fight, an entertaining fight. I also agree with you. I think it was closer than the other two judges saw the fight. And would you say that would have a reason for a rematch?
Kudras was in a position. I mean, it seems like he had everything going for him.
Yeah, he did.
And, he lost a close fight. He was a champion. He lost the title. Then he lost another close fight. He's got the charisma. He's got the fanfare. They seem to love him, but maybe he's not putting the work in the gym. I don't know. Maybe Arroyo had the fight of his life that night. There were times when I thought Arroyo was done, and all of a sudden he comes on and he made it a fight. Credit to McWilliams Arroyo for making Kudras kind of fight his fight. Maybe that was why. But we all get back to this judging, and you wonder, if judge number one is judging with the same order of criteria as judge number two, and so on. But hold that thoughts out. We're gonna take a short break. We got one more fight to talk about. You, myself, and Dax didn't fare too well with our predictions this weekend.
No,
and I got another one to talk about in about 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belt won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace? Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And I'm here right now with my man Sal Rocky Senecola. We're going over the fights from the weekend. And the one of the other ones that you and Dax and myself were wrong on was the one we didn't get to watch on TV was Brian Viloria. I figured this was a layup for Viloria, Sal. They were giving him a vacant title shot, and they put him up against a guy I knew nothing about, Artem Dalakian. And Dalakian won the fight. Not only did he win the fight, Sal, he kind of battered Brian Viloria. 118-109 was the way all three judges scored the fight, and beat him up pretty bad, especially at the end of the 11th. It looked like it was it for Viloria. He finished on his feet, but this very well may be the end of Brian Viloria. It looks like now Dalakian may go on to get a shot against Donnie Nietes. What's your thoughts?
No, I think that, it was a big surprise. I wish we could have seen the fight. And I'll tell you what, though, I'm a Donnie Nietes fan, and I'd like to see that fight and see what happens. That would be a good fight.
Some other fights that took place, I'll just touch real quickly. In the World Boxing Super Series, Callum Smith improved to 24-0 with 17 knockouts when he won a close decision over Niki Holzkin. At the end of the fight, Holzkin said, "I thought the fight would have been tougher, but he did a good job behind his jab. Congratulations to him, but I will be back." Callum Smith says, "I'm looking forward to the final," referring to the World Boxing Super Series. Groves is the one everyone wants to beat. He's the number 1 seed, and that's the fight I wanted. Well, he's got it. And George Groves was ringside. He says, "I've had 2 great wins. This is the first. This is the fight people wanted to see. I need to get in the ring and win that trophy. It's exciting to see your opponent fight live. I can't wait to get back in the gym. This is going to be an explosive final. I don't expect it to go the distance. I'm, of course, very confident." So that's what we got for the super middleweight final for the World Boxing Super Series. And some other fights. Remember we were talking, by the way, Flip Hrogovic won. He improved to 4-0. So did David Dubois on the undercard. But there was a fight, Sal. Last week we were talking about it. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Billy C, you had a great idea, great idea." I think they already thought of that. Richard Schaefer already thought of it because what they had billed as a World Boxing Super Series super middleweight substitute fight, former interim champion Dmitry Chodovov improved to 21-2 with a couple of draws when he scored an 8-round unanimous decision over Sarari Kamenetsky, who was a late substitute. He drops to 30 wins, 15 losses, and 3 draws, 78-73 across the board. So maybe they do have another tournament within a tournament going on to keep these guys fresh.
Well, yeah, we hit on it, and you scratched the surface, and I think we'll see what's happening. We'll see what's going to be revealed, and who knows? It might be just that kind of operation.
I wanted to talk about this whole thing with Deontay Wilder. I got some emails to read and stuff, but Deontay Wilder, I stopped, as of last week, I stopped reading all the rhetoric that's flowing out of his mouth. He says, I'm not gonna talk anymore. I'm gonna let my ring, but he hasn't shut up, and he's still talking smack. My question is anybody really listening? We know that the ticket sales are extremely slow. There's just about half the seats are still available from what I saw this morning. I went and checked the Barclays ticket office. It appears that there's half the seats still remain. I wonder if that's a direct reason, Sal, because he's not a draw or because people don't think it's going to be a competitive fight. What's your thoughts? And what's your thoughts with him still talking smack? Is anyone really listening to him? That's my question. Aside from himself, I mean, he's saying stuff like he's really scared, he's going to kill this guy, and people don't understand that he's vicious, he's this, he's that. He's a whole lot of nothing, in my opinion.
You and I know we have differences about Deontay Wilder, and I think we're in store to see the best Deontay Wilder ever. I still think he's got what it takes to maybe show us or do and rise to the occasion, as I like to say, and put on a great display. And I think he's going to go through Ortiz like a ripsaw. And, if this is his way of maybe doing a shock appeal or trying to promote the fight and things, why not? I mean, I think he's a lot better than what we've seen. And I think he can do a hell of a job against anybody. I think he's in the fight. He's in the game. He's in the fight. And Deontay Wilder, maybe talking smack is the shock appeal he needs to maybe promote the fight. And I can cut him some slack there very easily because the ticket sales have been maybe underperforming or expectations are not as where they should be. I don't know. But the bottom line is I think he's going to be like a buzzsaw and rip through this guy. And I still think we are yet in store to see the best Deontay Wilder put on a good display. The guy's dangerous. In my mind, the guy can do some big things in the ring.
Well,
and that's where you and I have, I guess, a little difference.
Listen, I want to see him do big things in the ring, but I mean, when you take a look at his, I've dissected his resume 100 times.
I know you have.
I happen to have it in front of me, as a matter of fact, believe it or not. And, I look at his fight. Yes, he's 39-0 with 38 knockouts. Even if he was fighting, Santa Claus for 39 fights, you would think that Santa Claus would land a lucky punch. So I give him credit. I mean, to win 39 fights, 38 by knockout, regardless of who you're against. But when you really look at his resume, the only fighters you can really, I mean, listen, the Audley Harrison fight back in 2013, the Malik Scott fight back in 2014, and quite honestly, the last fight that he fought against Berman Stavern, all really stink of fixes. I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but they stink of fixes, especially the Audley Harrison fight. The Malik Scott fight, they're bust buddies. He didn't even land a solid punch with him. I mean, the wins I give him credit for, I give him, the first Berman Stavern fight, you got to give him credit for that, even though Stavern has proved to be a joke. But the ones I really give him credit for is Artur Spitska. He knocked him out in 9. Spitska was, a decent fighter, not a world beater. Although Chris Arreola was 100% shot, he beat him in 8 rounds. I give him credit for that. And although Gerald Washington really was never tested prior to his fight against Deontay Wilder, I give him credit for that. So you got 3 names.
He closed the door there, there.
Yeah, you got three names, and none of them jump out at you. His last 6 fights, he weighed between 220 and 229 pounds. When you look at Luis Ortiz, and he's ranked at number 3, by the way. And by the way, Deontay Wilder, who is the one ranked at number 3, he's got a 3-inch height advantage over Luis Ortiz. But the reach advantage is actually in Ortiz's favor. He's got a 1-inch arm reach, according to BoxRec. But when you look at Ortiz, his last 6 fights or so, he's ranged from 230 to 242 pounds. So you wonder what kind of shape he comes in. Really, his last real fight was 15 months ago. He went 12 rounds with the same Malik Scott that I'm accusing of finding a soft place to lay down against Deontay Wilder. His best performance of the career, in my opinion, against Bryant Jennings. And in that fight, he weighed 239 pounds. He weighed 242 and a quarter in his last fight against Daniel March. So I don't know what to think. He did stop Burt Cooper and Zach Page, 2 extremely tough fighters, but they were real old, and that was during the first 14 months of his career. So really, we don't know what we're going to get with Luis Ortiz. I don't think that Deontay Wilder is going to really have that much trouble with Luis Ortiz. It all depends on which Ortiz shows up, But the moral of my story here is that Deontay Wilder talking smack, Sal, reminds me of the sheriff in Blazing Saddles when he's basically talking to himself. Oh, he means it. He means it. Everybody dropped the gun. And that's what Deontay Wilder's acting like. Oh, man, he's bad. He's this, he's that. And everybody's looking, wait a minute. Who's saying all of this? Deontay's saying it all. I don't know, man. I think the proof will be in the pudding on Saturday.
Well, and that's it. It's time to put up and shut up. The bottom line is, I think Deontay Wilder is going to rip through Ortiz. He's going to really. I think he's going to just dismantle him and probably make it a lot earlier of a night than 5 rounds. We'll see. I could be wrong, but we'll see. Well, I think it's going to be a good display on Deontay Wilder's part, and I think he's going to answer a few questions. I think Ortiz will try to surmount some type of offense and arsenal, and maybe get lucky with a couple good shots. But I think Deontay Wilder is too fast for him. I think Deontay Wilder is going to come out there. He knows all eyes are on him, and I think Deontay Wilder knows he's got to rise to the occasion and put on a good display. And he's going to say, "Hey, I'm going to show everybody I'm the champion I am," and boom, and I'm going to do what I can do to look good doing it. And that's it.
Hold that.
That's what I'm anticipating anyway.
Hold that thought. We'll be back in 2 minutes with a different opinion of what Sal just said.
Billy C will be right back.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt, the innovative technology to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Hologram USA presents a proposal to all investors. Hologram USA is an innovative three-dimensional patented technology that shifted the paradigm in media technology. Our patented hologram technology that brought you Tupac and Coachella, Whitney Houston, Billie Holiday, and many more is integrating live performances to bring your favorite past and present entertainers beyond your imagination. Invest in the patented technology before the banks scoop up all the stock. Invest in Hologram USA today. Hologram USA Flagship Theater, located on Hollywood Boulevard's Walk of Fame, is the first of many to come. Call now to be part of the explosive growth. Pick up the phone. Dial the number on your screen now. Invest in Hologram USA today. Call the number on your screen right now to learn about this investment opportunity.
Call 800-624-1673. 800-624-1673. Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Now back to Talking Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And just before we went to break, Sal Rocky Senecola said the words that Deontay Wilder is just too fast for Luis Ortiz. You know, Sal, I really want to know how you think that, because, I mean, I know what you're saying, and I know your theory about the drunken octopus style and that those flailing arms are coming from everywhere, and he's got the pop. I mean, nobody can deny that he's got some punching power. But where's this hand speed you speak of? Because from what I know, hand speed really has been proven to us by fighters that are more technically sound, because they learn how to deliver their punches in a much more rapid and effective manner. I don't look at Deontay Wilder as a speed guy at all. I look at him as a power puncher, nowhere near speed. Explain.
No, I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's the fastest puncher around. I'm just saying he has a delivery, and he is sharper, crisper. I think when Ariella, who I think is slower, okay? Ortiz, I'm sorry. Ortiz is slower. I think, that's where I think the Deontay Wilder is going to surprise him. When he sees he can counter, he can snap, he can get inside and do those punches. And you know what? I have a lot of faith in Mark Breland as his trainer, as his mentor. And, in my theory, in my mind, knowing what fighters feel in their hearts, or so, going in and preparing and wanting to show what they can do, I think we have yet to see the best Deontay Wilder we've seen. And we're going to see the best. We're going to see him grow, and I think over the next couple of fights, especially when he gets in with Anthony Joshua. So I think I think it's going to be a great fight. And I think that I could be wrong. But I think, as I said, whatever has been under wraps, I think he's going to be fighting at the level of his opposition. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's dangerous to do that. That's dangerous, and I don't disagree with that. You can almost see him when he knows he's way better than his opponent. He just comes out and tries to take the head off, and that's what I watch for, Sal, because the best fight that he displayed any kind of a skill set, any kind, was his first fight against Stavern, where he employed the jab, he employed movement, he was very proficient in winning that fight, and that was the first and only fight that has gone the distance. However, since then, he's never gone back to that, not for anyone. And that's when some people have made some great points to me about the possibility of predetermined endings, because if he knows that he's not going to lose the fight, he's going in for an exciting type of a win. And the exciting type of a win is crushing knockout wins like he's been giving us. And I'm not suggesting that. Listen, I would love this guy to be half as good as he says he is. I just don't see it. And I tell you what, Luis Ortiz, if he comes to fight, if this guy isn't totally coming for a payday and an additional payday under the table and the ride off into the sunset, because that's what he came over on a coconut raft for, to live here in the United States versus Cuba. If he's here with a little bit of pride, the word we used last week, and wants to show that he can win the fight, I think he's going to give Deontay Wilder some trouble. And I think that his boxing ability is going to be trouble for Deontay because the guy knows how to counterpunch, and he's a little quicker than you think. You know, Luis Ortiz is not a slow fighter. He's got deceiving hand speed, especially if he's in the pocket. And I could see him, even though he's got the reach advantage, I could see him stealing some rounds with a jab and then getting in close when Wilder gets frustrated. Wilder has never displayed what he does if somebody frustrates him. The only thing that I've seen him do, Sal, is when he does get hit, he gets all discombobulated. The guy does not like to get hit. You get in his face and land a couple of shots, I think we're going to see a Deontay Wilder lose it mentally. I think all of his own, the same questions we have, I think he has for himself, to be honest with you.
Well, I think this will be a good test this weekend, and I really think that Deontay Wilder, as I suggest, I don't think we've seen the best Deontay Wilder yet. And I think once the level of opposition is going to push him to that and going to give him
he's got to fight them.
Sorry?
He's got to fight someone good.
Well, I mean, and let's go back to look at that. He's fought and he's beat everybody in his path that has been given to him.
That's not, yeah, but he turned down a fight with Dillian White. He's turned down some fights with other better opponents. You know, I mean, or maybe not him, but his team.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. We don't know the mechanics behind what's going on with the fights that are going to be solidified and made. And like I said, I like the guy. Okay, I want to see him do well. I want to see him prove me right. I want to see him rise to the occasion and put on a good display because I do like the guy. He comes in the ring. He comes to fight. He comes to win. And he seems to be a decent guy outside the ring. In fact, you know, we'll see. I think this is going to be a good test for him this weekend. And I think if he is pushed, if he is tested, I think he's going to rise to the occasion. I think that's the fighter in his heart. And I think we have yet to. That's why I keep saying I think we have yet to have seen the best Deontay Wilder. And I think we're going to be in store for that over the next couple of fights. That's all.
Well, we'll see. And, you know, Deontay Wilder, like I said earlier, keeps, you know, going to the shooting off his mouth, basically, and, you know, talking smack. And he's going to do a lot of things based on his mouth. And one of the things he said over the last several days, weeks, whatever, is he keeps referring to Luis Ortiz as a cheat. And his comment last week on Friday was actually it was actually on Saturday, but he said Wilder said once a cheat, always a cheat, referring to Luis Ortiz. As we know, the fight had been scheduled not once but twice, and both times the fight was canceled because of a positive test on Luis Ortiz's part. One time, it even got so crazy that the team Ortiz thanked the WBC for looking out for the health of their fighter, which really makes me the flag goes up for that. But Victor Conti, who we all know is an expert with PEDs, I mean, this was one of the main guys that is keeping a lot of baseball players out of the Hall of Fame. But
he's got the PED hotline. Right?
Yeah, but you know, now he's working on the other side. You know, trying to help fighters, at least trying to help them beat the test. I don't know, but he had some words for Deontay Wilder based on what Wilder's saying. He says, and this is Victor Conti. Conti says, "I don't believe Deontay Wilder knows anything about anti-doping." Quite honestly, I don't think Deontay Wilder knows anything about anything, but that's besides the point. He says, "I don't think Wilder's statement, once a cheat, always a cheat, is coming from an informed individual. He seems to know about as much about anti-doping as I know about skydiving, and I'm afraid of heights. Luis Ortiz has been tested 7 times by VADA, as well as the New York State Athletic Commission. I've been assisting the Ortiz camp by helping their trainer with nutrition and training protocols. In fact, I've tested Ortiz's blood profile on 2 different dates and have not seen any of the markers that would suggest any form of drug use. The bottom line I think Ortiz is a clean athlete, and everyone needs to put this once a cheat, always a cheat stuff aside. I hope it doesn't become a distraction or a sideshow this week, and that everyone can focus upon a great fight that's about to happen. My prediction is Luis Ortiz will do a great job and become the new heavyweight champion.
Wow.
This is Victor Conti. You know, I've always said, Sal, you know, Luis Ortiz does have talent. It was a fight I wanted to see Deontay fight 2 years ago, and now it's happening now. You wonder about that marination. You wonder about them waiting until, you know, the age thing. You wonder if there was another deal cut. There's so many question marks now. And even if Deontay performs well, there's going to be a lot of naysayers not giving him the credit. And I think that that might be a whole nother obstacle that he's going to have to overcome.
Well, you know, we're going to always have that. I mean, look at your stance and my stance, even with Larry Holmes, when Larry Holmes was fighting in his self-proclaimed shadow of Muhammad Ali. I mean, there was nothing that Larry Holmes could do right to those that were looking to see him not do everything right. But in retrospect, Larry Holmes, looking at his history and his fights and his opposition, I mean, the guy was great, and he did whatever he could do to win. So I'm not trying to make a comparison, but like I said, I think we're going to see, and I think Deontay Wilder's comments, what I think he's meaning behind that, and again, it's just my opinion, Bill, but I think what he means behind that statement, once a cheat, always a cheat, is that if somebody has the mindset to look for some type of angle or some type of thing that is going to be tainted or not the thing that you're supposed to do, if he's got that window of opportunity open where he did it once, there's not saying that he's never going to try to go back to the well again. I think that's what that I read into that statement. But that you know, like I said, that's just my opinion.
Well,
if that opportunity prevails itself.
I mean, when somebody is labeled, you know, a cheater or whatever, they're constantly looking at them. You know, so yeah. I mean, the same thing happened to Manny Pacquiao. People started saying he was a PED user, and then he was tested more. The thing that bothers me is that there's clearly some favorites here in this whole VADA testing protocol. We hear about one side being tested, but a lot of times we don't hear about the other side. So I don't know. I purposely stay out of it because, you know, I don't know enough about it, and I certainly don't want to spend hours and hours learning about it because, let's be honest, you'd have to, you know, to really, you know, aside from just commenting on reports, I'm not going to get deep into what, you know, PED does, what it doesn't do, etc. But got a couple of emails. This one's from Johnson. He says, "Hey, Billy C. and Sal, I just want to make you aware of the events that unfolded on Saturday at the Doncaster Dome in England. Scott Westgarth won a 10-round decision against unbeaten Dex Spellman. The 31-year-old conducted his post-fight interview as normal, but was taken ill backstage. A suspected bleed to the brain was the early diagnosis. As a result, the show was consequently canceled. I've not seen the interview, but the fans did notice that he was visibly distressed. Tragically, Scott Westgarth passed away the next day in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Tributes have flooded on social media, including Westgarth's promoter, Steffi Bull, who organized Saturday's show, and they tweeted their thoughts and condolences, as well as Eddie Hearn. You know, it's unfortunate that this happened.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in contact sports, there's always the possibility the athletes know the risk that they take. But the thing that really surprised me on this was that they canceled the whole show. That tells me that there was something else that made the reason. Because let's be real, they take a guy for observation to a hospital. They don't know what the situation is until they get reports back. He didn't pass away until the following day. It sounds to me, now I don't know what the rules are in England, But here in the States, especially in most reputable states, they require a ambulance EMTs 2 sets on site, and the reason is in the event that a fighter has to be taken to a hospital via ambulance, stretcher, etc. There's another one there to pick up the slack so that the show can continue. Now I've been involved with fights that were on less than stellar, controlled by less than stellar commissions here in the States, where they don't require 2, and you have an injury that sends the ambulance away from the venue. The protocol is to wait until it gets back before you start the next fight, if you're in a state that doesn't have the requirements of having 2 on site. Now, I don't know what the rules are in England, but it seems to me, Sal, that the reason why the rest of this card was canceled was due to some type of instance like that. I mean, just sending a guy to a hospital for observation, and ultimately we found out the next day that, obviously it was horrific that Mr. Westgarth lost his life. But leading up to that point, we didn't know it. So there has to be another reason. I mean, the way it's being spun now is that they canceled the show because of the injury, and something doesn't add up to me.
Well, from what the information you just shared with us, no, it doesn't add up to me either. And, you made a great point. Yes, there's got to be an ambulance on hand. There's got to be medical doctors ringside. Yes, there's got to be certain things that do count towards having a show continue. And if all these were swept away and everybody followed this poor gentleman to the hospital and all eyes were on him, yeah, I could see if they didn't have another backup in reserve like you suggested, then the fight had to be canceled, which is foolish because they should always have, like you said, 2 ambulances or 2 medical teams or 2 something backup just for this incident. And for whatever reason, that's the only thing I could suggest why the show may have been canceled. They didn't have that backup, and that's a shame. And it's also a shame that this gentleman lost his life because he was just doing what he was trained to do. And you never know. You never know when that one last punch. We saw, you and I. We talk about it. The crack glass theory. It may not be that fight that does it, but it might have been the fight prior or the training prior that softened up or actually opened up the door to damage. And as we saw with the fight prior to, you know what I'm trying to talk about. What was the fighter we saw? That you and I watched.
Gene Fulmer and
Gene Fulmer
Benny Kid
and
Perret.
Benny Kid Perret.
Right.
You hit it on the head. I think that fight right there that he had with Gene Fulmer, Benny Kid Perret, that was the one that set in damage, I believe, to when he went on and he fought his next fight that he never recovered from.
Right, and that was a point that we made. That was one of our, in case you are new to the show, that's one of our Boxing Revisited episodes. We rebroadcast the vicious fight between Gene Fulmer.
You talk about vicious, relentless.
Up to that point, if somebody asked me what I thought was the best the best best fight I ever saw in terms of brutalness, I would have said Hagler Hearns, and I've always said those were the best 3 rounds of boxing I ever witnessed in my life, especially live. But when Sal and I did the Revisited episode with Benny Kid Perret against Gene Fulmer, we had Hagler Hearns for 10 rounds. The interesting thing about that, and the topic that we discussed post fight, was that if that fight had taken place today,
then they would have reached the 6th round.
Well, that's a whole nother story. And let's be real. Rocky Marciano, several of his fights would have been stopped. He would have never been undefeated. The fight with Ezra Charles
would have had him counted out.
Well, the Ezra Charles fight, his nose was literally flapping on his face. It was gruesome. Nobody could even look at it, and they let that continue. But anyway, this particular fight, the Fulmer Benny Kid Perret fight, if that fight would have taken place today, any commission would have not only suspended Benny Kid Perret, who ended up losing that fight via a knockout loss, which I can't believe he got up the first time, but when he lost that fight, any commission would have put him on no less than a 60-day suspension after the brutality of that particular fight, maybe even 90. But here's the other thing. They would have also put Gene Fulmer on a suspension because he took a severe beating. And, oh, by the way, they let Benny Kid Perret fight a couple of weeks later against Emil Griffith, and the rest is history. He died after that fight on network television. Many people saw it in their living room. But the other part of the story is when you take a look at Gene Fulmer, his career, he never won another fight after that. He lost his title, I believe, against Tiger Flowers, had a couple of rematches with him, and ended up retiring. So, I mean, the aftermath of that fight basically ended 2 careers and 1 life, so it was very bad. So,
and those are realities of boxing that we have to always be aware of and take note of. I mean, that fight, as you and I pointed out while we were doing our commentary over it, it was 10 rounds or 12 rounds or how many rounds of Hagler-Hearns. And, the human body can only endure so much punishment. And that's the theory. So we don't know if this gentleman over in England may have had either a tough sparring session or a tough fight prior or whatever it is, but I'm sure they may be looking into that now because who knows, the totality or brutality of one fight could have been from a prior fight, or maybe this is the onset and he just had, as simple as it could be, leakage or brain bleeding and undetected, unnoticed, until it was too late, where they can do things that they can alleviate the pressure and take the necessary precautions to save one's life. And that was, you never know what's going on inside when you can't see.
Just to make a comment about a comment, our official chat room that we look at and join in the show is up on BillyCBoxing.com. And my man New Rose said Ledebev against Guillermo Jones. If you haven't seen that fight, that was a brutal fight, but that was pretty much one-sided. Guillermo Jones beat the living hell out of Denis Ledebev, and that was a fight that I could not believe the ringside doctor did not stop. They kept letting Ledebev continue with that fight. And then after the fight, they said Jones tested positive. That was in Russia, but the brutal. This guy was disfigured and everything. I mean, how they kept letting it. Look at this guy. He's beaten to a pulp, and the ringside doctor looked and says, "He's okay. He's okay." I'm saying, well, he's okay. I've never seen anything like it. It was almost as bad is when they were doing physical therapy on the guy that fought Alexander Povetkin, who cracked his neck and he was stuck, and they're working on him for 14 minutes. And then they said, okay, fight can continue. It's like, what? You just worked on this guy 14 minutes, But anyway, only in Russia. I got one more email, and then we're going to take a break
we're going to have to revisit a couple of times.
Oh, man. But my man Joel says, hey, guys, will you be doing a post-fight show Saturday night after Wilder Ortiz? I've been letting you guys down with the post-fight shows, and I apologize for that. It's something that we really want to do more of. The problem is that that particular fight, although I think it's worthy of a post-fight show, the problem I'm having is that HBO is broadcasting another fight during the same time. So the results of that won't be, we'll get the result of the Deontay Wilder Luis Ortiz fight, and then the Kovalev fight would still be going on, and that's not really a fight that's going to be competitive. But the first one will be the Bivol against Sullivan Barrera. That's really a competitive fight. So, I hate doing fights, a post-fight show, unless I have all of the data in front of me. So give me. We're off tomorrow, but we will make a decision by Wednesday's show. So hang tight on that one. I appreciate that. Joel keeping us kick-started here, Sal, because it's something that I really want to do more of, and we promised everybody that we were going to do more of, and so far, as soon as I promised, I've let them down.
Well, it's not that you let them down, but you make a good point why we may or may not be able to do one, because we would like all the fight results. We'd like to be able to simultaneously see all these fights and get on the same page as far as what you saw, what I saw, and what people want to call in or give their opinion. I mean, if we say, hey, we're going to do a 1 a.m. show about all three results and see what happens, I'll leave that up to you. Or if it's 12 o'clock, or if it's whatever time, we could all reconvene and say, hey, we're going to do the show at a certain time versus just 6 minutes after decision to get all the results in. But that's totally in your court, and I'll be available for whatever you want to do.
Right.
And it's difficult because you make a great point. There's some other fights going on that night that we want to have some input and talk about. Well, we'll talk about it.
Right. Listen, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're scheduled to have Dax Khan join us. We'll get his thoughts on the fights from the weekend, so don't go nowhere.
Billy C will be right back, part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks, like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt, the innovative technology to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Endless pools are an incredible alternative to traditional pools, making it easy and inexpensive to swim at home. Exercise year-round against a smooth current set to your desired pace and temperature. With our new underwater treadmill, you can walk or run without stressing your joints. Endless pools are simple to install and even simpler to maintain. The water stays crystal clear with almost no chlorine. Call for your free idea kit and experience the freedom of swimming at home.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young.
And he's got martinis.
So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And joining us right now to get his thoughts on the big fights from this past weekend, my man Dax Khan. Good morning, Dax.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I don't know about you, but I thought Rungsval just looked like a vicious, relentless fighter. And as much as I liked Estrada, and I picked him just like you and Sal and myself, we didn't do too well this week. But I give him credit. He looked good in the second half of the fight. But I thought the right guy won the fight. What was your thoughts on the whole fight?
I thought. I was surprised, first of all, that Estrada was able to handle the power of Rungvisai even early. Yep. At the times he's most vulnerable, as we spoke about on Friday. Estrada did exactly what we thought he was going to do. As the fight grew on, he became stronger. To me, a lot of that and a lot of those rounds was kind of what style do you prefer? Do you prefer the finesse fighter, or do you prefer the pressure guy who lands the harder punches? While Estrada was making Rungvisai fight his fight, or was Rungvisai actually making Estrada fight his fight? I don't know, but you have to be impressed that Rungvisai, not only did he keep his composure at the fact that, he wasn't able to get inside and fight rough like he did in Roman Gonzalez fight and his other fights like he's used to, but, he was able to keep his stamina. I was impressed by that. Friday I mentioned, not only does he average 6 fights a year, but he averages about 6 rounds per fight. And for all 12 rounds, he didn't really, he didn't seem to fade. In fact, they both closed that very strong. My opinion, the right guy won, Juan Francisco Estrada. I don't think that his stock dropped any in this loss because it was very competitive. I was a bit, and with most of the fights on here, I was a bit bothered by the scores. Kathy Leonard and Dave Moretti, okay. Dave Moretti had to draw. Kathy Leonard, 2 points for Rungvisai. And then Steve Marrow, that 117-111 scorecard, which seems to be mandatory on any big fight nowadays. So, that kind of takes away from it. But I really do think that Rungvisai has improved as a fighter, and he's just getting better. So, I was very pleased with the fight overall and the way they both closed it out and the way they both handled themselves. So I really I enjoyed it. I have no complaints. And now the next fight to see, is got to be Rungvisai against the monster Inui.
I tell you, I think you're 100% right, and I agree with you. He is getting better. And
I was saying the same thing when you said it.
And that's scary because this is a guy, if he learns, if he gets a little more polished with skill set, he's going to be a tough out. Sal, I got a question for you. And Dax, I don't know if you noticed this. I'm sure you did. But right from the very first round, Rungsval was drinking water. They were giving him water. And usually, halfway through the fight, they'll start letting them intake it. But a lot of times they'll rinse it out, cool them off. They don't want to get all, full of water. And a lot of discussion has been about his rehydration. He ended up weighing close to 135 pounds by fight night.
Wow.
What do you why would a fighter be drinking water so early in the fight? I mean, he did it in between the first and second round. He took a couple of good-sized gulps of water. I mean, what would be the reason for that?
Well, the legs, remember, and we spoke about that, and anybody who's seen him notices those tree trunk calves of his. People, if you know, and Sal, can reinforce this, Bill, you know this already, that it takes more to feed muscle than it does to feed fat. And when you have so much muscle and you're dehydrating yourself down there to make weight and you're gaining that 15 pounds overnight, you have to get that muscle back into shape. You have to get that water back into there, or else you're going to end up cramping up. The fact that he came in just slightly under 130 pounds during the official weigh-in earlier in the day, and by the time the fight came, maybe he was 135, maybe even 140 pounds. So, he had to keep that water going, or else if he did not, what was going to happen is that his legs were going to get tired, he was going to slow down, he was going to cramp up, he wouldn't be mobile, and of course he was going to lose power on top of that. So he had to keep hydrating himself. To me, also, that's another clue that maybe 115 pounds isn't going to be the division for him too much longer. He's going to have to move up another division.
What do you think?
I'll tell you what, I concur with a lot of what Dax just said. And, you almost want to see what you can do as a preventive or as a precaution. And if he was hydrating himself, maybe he anticipated, whatever dehydration process or drying out process we call it before the weigh-ins. That's why today it's so important that people know that that was what we were very concerned about when we had the same day weigh-ins. I mean, when I hopped off a scale, if I dried out 24 hours before, I didn't drink anything. I usually had a bottle of Gatorade and a banana to get some potassium back in my system as quickly as possible. And but now you got to think about it. You got 24 hours the day before the weigh-ins. I mean, day before the fight for the weigh-ins, and that's part of the reason why. So you have time to rehydrate yourself, which I don't agree with. I think it should be same-day weigh-ins, but neither here or there. That would be a precautionary step, I think, and to keep water in the radiator, as a preventive measure. Who knows? I wouldn't want to ingest too much water before a fight or before an athletic event, just because it might bog you down. It might upset your stomach. And for me, I know. Well, but I would like to have a little bit to keep the joints and everything else ready to go, and to hydrate myself, because you are going to be losing a lot of water and minerals and vitamins as you perspire during the course of a fight.
No, I listen. I know why they do it, and a lot of fighters will start intaking water halfway through the fight, but this guy was drinking in the middle. I think the prevention of cramp in the legs makes a lot of sense. But,
and they hurt, Bill, when they cramp up like that. That's why I remember what my legs used to feel like, and when they cramp, you can't do anything about it except let it go its course.
Yeah, point your toes. But Sal, I mean Dax, the Deontay Nientes against Juan Carlos Revico, what a showcase fight for Nientes. I mean, I couldn't believe that the fans were booing him or booing the fight because and I will say this, and most of the time in these smaller weights, I mean, you see a lot of action, and Nientes was really showing that. This guy's he's got his skill set is really second to none. I mean, he was very accurate with his punches. He was hard to hit. He made Juan Carlos Revico look ordinary at best. And he did, in my opinion, a classic breakdown his fighter and then finished him off. What was your thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, well, first, as far as to address the booing, I agree. Maybe because of the action that the fans were expecting, which these lower weight classes always do provide. That could have been one thing. Maybe the fans, because they were not familiar with Nientes, or they're not overly familiar with Revico, and they wanted these guys to step it up and give them a reason. I'm not really sure why, but you hit it right on the head when you speak about the ability of Nientes. I spoke about that on Friday, stating, this guy's been a champion since 2004. That's not by accident. He's been a champion in 3 weight classes. That's not by accident, in his mid-30s, and the fact that he's only stayed within those short little weight classes between 6 and 8 pounds, just speaks of his conditioning, it speaks of his dedication, and it speaks of his skill set. He definitely went in there and showed that Donnie Nientes is one of the best Filipino fighters of all time. In case you haven't seen him before, then somebody can follow his career, look him up, see what fights he's had on YouTube. He's a great fighter. He was doing a lot of subtle things, and he was doing stuff that a guy you know, a fighter at that weight class in his mid-30s is a lot like, you know, a fighter in upper weight classes in their 40s, like maybe a Bernard Hopkins at age 45 or something like that, where, you know, you have to start relying on different things besides your natural athletic ability because, you know, it's faded and it's left, and Donnie Nietes does that. Now, I was angry with not only the California State Commission, but also with referee Eddie Hernandez Sr. I was really peeved, you know, by what happened in that fight. You know, the fact that, you know, at the end of that 6th round when Nietes landed that really hard punch to Revico, and it caused that delayed reaction, was scary. I say scary, not because it was a huge punch, but it was a well-placed punch that had that delayed reaction, which also, you know, usually means that, you know, there was a bad neurological disruption. You know, it's not like a body punch, you know, or a liver punch was a delayed reaction, and, you know, it's suddenly the body tells the mind, you know, I'm hurt, I have to go down. You know, those type of delayed reactions to the head means that, you know, the brain itself is not able to tell anything else, even respond to it. You know, the main database is not able to react and say, you know, we're hurt. You know, our body has a self-preservation mode. That's what happens when a fighter gets hit hard and the brain, moves over to one side, and they have these one-punch knockouts that, the fans we love to see. That did not happen, and the corner over there was complaining that it was after the bell, and then the referee comes over, and then, they're assessing him. The commission's assessing him, and then after that, he has an extra 30 seconds. He gets up, and he's still on rubber legs. You could see his leg move. He almost lost his footing when he went out there. It's almost like he missed a step coming off a curb, and he almost kind of buckled forward, and he took some unnecessary punches after that. That was scary, and I believe the commissioner, referee, and the corner of Rebico dropped the ball. But, it was a great fight. It showed Don Nietes, is the real deal. How much time he has left, I'm not really sure, but I enjoyed that. And, it really did show that Don Nietes is a complete fighter. He has power. He has boxing ability. And, unfortunately, we're seeing him here in the States at the end of his career instead of maybe 5 or 10 years ago when he would have been really a big star.
Finally, the other two fights, and we did my mistake on Friday. For some reason, I had the Brian Viloria fight and the Kudras fight against McWilliams-Arroyo. This fight was kind of weird for me. Kudras is a guy that seems to have a big following. He's got the charisma and the personality. He's an action-packed fighter. But he's not looked that great lately. McWilliams-Arroyo was a fighter. I'm not taking anything away from him. I don't know if Kudras took him lightly or whatever the case was. I did think that the fight was a little closer than the outcome. I thought Kudras kind of won the fight. But the truth of the matter is he didn't throw enough punches. I mean, these fighters, you can't expect to win if you're not throwing punches. It's the same thing with the Estrada fight. Estrada I beat him in the last 3 rounds. Well, what about the first 9? You let them get too close. Was this a case for Kudras, Dax?
No, again, I have to reference the scores again. 97-93 by Tony Krebs, 98-92 by Pat Russell, which are pretty much the same. Maybe one guy seen something in one round, the other one didn't. Then Fernando Villarreal has it 95-95. I don't understand, what they seen there, what he's seen there anyway. When things are like that, too wide of a margin or even too close like that, it really does take away from the ending of the fight. Whatever happened, you're almost shaking your head, looking more at the decision than what happened. As far as Kudras, this is a guy here who, in my opinion, over his last 3 or 4 fights, is looking for excuses to blame other people. Abel Sanchez is his 3rd or his 4th trainer in as many fights, and Carlos Kudras, he didn't listen to Sanchez when Sanchez told him, use your jab more, throw more punches. He just went out there looking for every punch to be a home run punch. He did the same thing early on in the Juan Francisco Estrada fight. So Carlos Kudras, it's going to be up to him to make some adjustments and get back to using the jab and get back to the constant pressure like he did when he was a champion, if he ever expects to regain that. As far as Arroyo, that's the best I've ever seen Arroyo look for a full fight. The one thing that he's going to have to fix, in my opinion, is the showboating. Maybe he was a little bit happy with himself that he was in such control, but the making the noise, the showboating, the letting Kudras pretty much know when every punch was coming. If Arroyo really wants to have another successful performance and he wants to step up and be able to get another title shot or even remain competitive with those big names, whether or not it's a Rungvisai or whether or not it's an Inouye, he's going to have to change his habits a little bit as well. But both those guys right now, I think they're in the lower half of that division. But a couple changes. Kudras isn't getting any younger, so he's going to have to make some adjustments. He's going to have to stick with Abel Sanchez, and as far as Arroyo goes, same thing. He's going to have to make a few adjustments, and those guys are, looking another year or 2, and they're going to leave, and that division is going to thin out because the other guys are going to move up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought that it's almost like Kudras felt that he already won this fight, and it was like a showcase fight. Could he have taken McWilliams-Arroyo lightly? And for Arroyo's case, he might have fought the best fight of his career on Saturday. So, we'll have to see next time out. But
interesting note, real quick. if you remember during the thing, and I agreed on it 100%, and you hinted towards it too. Kudras is a likable guy. He has a great personality, and that's one of the things you like about him. It's almost as if, he gives off this aura to say, give me some of your time. I promise we're going to have some fun. You're going to be entertained, and you are. But Jim Lampley, I believe, is the one who said it, and he hit it right on the head. If Canelo had the personality or some of the charisma of Carlos Kudras that he displays, he'd be even a bigger star and a bigger pay-per-view draw than what he is. He probably double his pay-per-view sales, and I happen to agree with that. I think Canelo could spend some time with Kudras and kind of pick up a little bit of that swagger.
Well, the truth of the matter is you need the whole package. You got to have the swagger, you got to have the personality, and oh, by the way, you got to be able to fight too. We've seen a lot of guys with a great personality, but they can't fight. But.
Canelo can do, but Canelo can fight. So.
No. I'm not suggesting Canelo can't fight.
No, I'm saying Canelo can fight. So now all he needs is a little bit of charisma.
Well, the funny thing is you make a good point, Dax, because Kudras does not know English either. The big excuse that we're always making for Canelo is, well, he doesn't really speak English that well, although he's trying, and that's there's a language barrier. That's why he's not. But he's got this air about him. Like one of those superstar jocks in high school that think that they're better than everyone else. That's what I see when I see Canelo. He's kind of, and then Golden Boy doesn't help any by putting him up on that pedestal. So yeah, I think Canelo's a little conceited, and hopefully that'll change come Cinco de Mayo. But finally, the fight we didn't get to see, Brian Viloria against our team Delakian. I guess this is. I mean, listen. I think it's safe to say that Brian Viloria his career is over. I mean, he went to the well once too often. I did not see anything from Delakian on his resume that would indicate that this was going to be a real test for Brian Viloria. Now, granted, Delakian certainly performed well. He dominated this fight from start to finish. But what does that tell us? Is it telling us that Delakian is a lot better than we thought, or Brian Viloria is a shot fighter? What do you think, Dax?
Well, two things. One, that Brian Viloria, yes, again, he's a guy that's in his mid-30s. He's got over 40 fights. A lot of them were tough fights, as we spoke about on Friday. And as far as Delakian, yeah, you know what? I mentioned myself that only 2 or 3 fights ago, he was fighting a guy who had lost 4 of his prior 6 before then, and he lost 9 of his 11 since his loss to Delakian. Question that KO power. And Viloria kind of answered that question on really how hard of a hitter is he, because, he stepped up to that next level. But Delakian did show some impressive boxing skills. He's raw. Make no question about that. He's raw. For example, when Viloria would come in close, Delakian, at times he would uppercut, but also at times he became a little bit confusing, just kind of leaned down on him. Not purposely, I don't believe, but, just out of not really being sure on how to continuously handle this. He moved around on his bike well. He jabbed at a distance well. I'd like to see him maybe slow that down a little bit and not waste as much energy. That elbow at the 11th round where Lumaret and the commission dropped the ball on that, was vicious. And again, that wasn't really, that wasn't intentional. You can see, because that fight was shown on Ring TV, that, Delakian more or less, he kind of threw a little bit too early, and Viloria was coming in there. But, at that point in time, it was already too late, because unless Viloria had went and scored a sensational 12th round knockout, which wasn't going to happen. He had already lost the fight. That was the only fight that all 3 judges happened to agree on. I think it was 118-109, which, in my opinion, was the exact correct scoring. So I'd like to see Delakian just a little bit. Brian Viloria, as you stated, I think his career, for all intents and purposes, is over. So Delakian, the bad news about him is he's 30 years old and he's a 115-pound fighter, so he doesn't have a lot of time to adjust. But if he can, I think Delakian, he might be something worth watching. So maybe here in the States, a few more fights. So it's interesting. Question mark out on him. But remember, Rungvisai, just a year ago, we really knew nothing about him, and look what happened there.
This is true. Dax, before we let you go, I know you indicated real quick. I actually saw it when you put it up there in our communication tool. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the FDA had introduced a new testing option to help determine if there's a problem with the bleeding on the brain or a lesion on the brain or whatever. And the device of this, and it's a blood test basically, and the device of this could really change the sport of boxing and all contact sports because, one of the cries I always hear from promoters and stuff is the cost of a CAT scan, et cetera, et cetera. Some commissions require it, some don't. Some require it after a knockdown, some don't. But if it was able to be performed via a blood test, at least initially, and then depending upon those results to further order more, I think the safety of the fighters would go up immensely. For an example, this new test, which they're calling it the first blood test, when they did the study, which got it approved from the FDA, slightly under 2,000 patients from blood samples, they were able to determine that 97.5% of the time when there was a problem with that brain, whether it be in a lesion or bleeding on the brain, came out and found it, 97.5.
Wow.
And
That's a heck of a stat.
in the cases where there was a normal scan, the blood test was able to determine 99.6% of the time of its accuracy. These kinds of results are extraordinary, and I can't see what would hold any commission back from utilizing this. Dax, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, it's absolutely, the cost. We speak about this all the time. You've been speaking about this since I've known you, and I've heard other people too, but, you've been really adamant on we need the testing of the CT scans or the MRI scans before these fighters turn professional, because what might be a normal CT scan or MRI scan for you or Sal might not be the right one for me. Mine might be different, but, even though that's normal. Now, and next month I have to have a surgery down in Mount Sinai Medical Center, which is one of the premier medical centers in the world. Now, this blood test that you're speaking about, when it comes to neurological testing, neurological studies, there's a doctor that's called a neuropsychologist. It's not the same thing as a psychiatrist. A neuropsychologist is somebody that, they'll sit down with you one time, let's say before you have a bad accident and you're just having these psychology symptoms. And they're going to, sit down, they're going to, do little tests whether or not it's, can you do this with the pen? They're going to ask you questions. They're going to see your demeanor. They give you a little written thing. And then after you have an injury, what they do is they do these same things again. And what they more or less do, they just kind of see your regular behaviors. They look at your handshakes, just any little thing, and then they can tell, there is some sort of neurological difference going on here. Now, they have this blood test that, that you stated. Now, one of my doctors down there, when I was down there last Wednesday doing my pre-surgical testing, is Martin Goldstein, who's also a neuroevaluator, and he was telling me that, he watches the show on occasion. He was telling me that, something, he goes, we're working on a study right here, and we're trying to get in with not only the NFL, but the NHL, and he goes, and they're trying to work with the New York State Commission on, having these pre-licensing MRIs or CT scans be made mandatory and it be included with the price of the license. And if they were willing to come and do that at the facility themselves, as long as you were going there and you presented, I'm coming here, I'm turning professional, here's my thing, they're going to do this test at like a minimal to almost no cost just for the safety of the fighters. Something that's going to be something for the betterment of the whole sport, and it's coming very close to happening along with that blood test that you were speaking about. So, this is huge strides for the sport as a whole. So hopefully, this happens sooner or later, but, just by coincidence that you happen to mention that today, I was going to give you a call at some point in time this week and tell you that I spoke about that with Dr. Goldstein, just came up out of the blue, but, they are working on that right now, and he says, hopefully by the summer, this is locked in place.
Well, good, because that's a step in the right direction, and you're right. I've been talking about that for a long time. My argument has always been to take a head scan first, which would have to be presumed as a normal scan. Then you arm a doctor with a lot more ammunition to determine if there's a problem, other than just X's and O's, so to speak. What's normal for you might be not normal for me.
One of the top sports injury doctors on the East Coast is named Nicholas Blasco, and Nicholas Blasco will tell you, something. A lot of times they'll do an MRI or they'll do a CT scan, and it's not really showing what's happening. Now, we'll take somebody like, Terry Norris or Muhammad Ali, who developed that Parkinson's. Not Parkinson's, but the Parkinson's due to the blows that acquired over the years inside the ring. Now, one of the tests that they need to do is an MRI, but it has to be a special MRI that actually measures not the damage. It doesn't look for any sort of swelling. It doesn't look for any sort of hematomas. It actually goes in there and it looks for the gray matter and sees if that gray matter is thinning out, or if that gray matter is starting to separate in certain places. Because if that's happening, what that means is, maybe not tomorrow, as Sal was saying before, it could be damage from last fight that took place that all of a sudden caught up with somebody this fight from the smallest punch. The same thing can happen with there. It's not going to be something where you see today, but all of a sudden 2 weeks from now, a guy starts having these really bad neurological effects, and then all of a sudden in that next fight, just that one fight, all of a sudden, they end up really in a bad situation, like a Gerald McClellan type guy or a Muhammad Abdulmalov type person, where they end up relying on people to take care of them the rest of their life. Why? Only because that one little punch just happened to separate a little bit of, that one little piece of tissue, that one little piece of gray matter right there that's never going to go back together. And that's why a lot of these tests are important, and they really don't cost a lot of money, and there's a lot of facilities out there that are willing to say, you know what, if you guys bring a steady stream over here, we're not going to go through insurance. We're going to set one flat price just for you guys, and there's not going to be any excuses for these promoters and that. So when it comes to that point in time, then it's up to the fans, and then it's up to the more or less up to the fans and the fighters to say, you know what, if you're not willing to do this and get this inside here for me, we're going to go on with somebody else who is willing.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's all a step in the right direction, and I'm glad to hear it. That's for sure. But Dax, appreciate your time. We'll look forward to later in the week when we break down Deontay Wilder against Luis Ortiz, and what Sal is promising to be a signature fight for Deontay. So we'll have to wait and see.
All right, everybody, enjoy the day.
Take care,
Dax. Take care, my
day.
man. That's Dax Khan, and you can check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com. I like the way he kind of just smiled at that one, Sal. I think you're definitely in the minority here, brother.
Hey, like I said, I think Billy, like I said, in my heart of hearts, for whatever reason, I just believe there is a lot more to Deontay Wilder than what he's shown right now. I think he's going to rise to the occasion when given that level of opposition he's got to meet and exceed. I do. I just feel in my heart of hearts. I think he's a better fighter than what you think he is. I think he's a better fighter than what he's shown thus far. And I think when the rubber meets the road, he's going to rise to the occasion and show us. We'll see.
Yeah, well, he's going to get his chance.
That's my observations. That's my thoughts, and that's me looking at what the scenario is at hand. So we'll see. I'm either going to be right or wrong, but we'll see. I believe he's the.
You're right. You're either going to be right or wrong, Sal.
Hey, that's a truism, isn't it?
Yeah, I tell you the truth. I tell you the truth. You Confucius got nothing on you, man. I mean. That's for sure. But listen, we both
is
love.
That Confucius or is that is that Confucius or is that confusion?
No, you're confused. No, you're confused. But listen, we've been talking about the tournaments, and the World Boxing Super Series tournament has really stepped up. I love it. I mean, okay. Let's be real. The super middleweight division is not a glamour division, no matter what you do, and so you can make that argument. But it's really helped the cruiserweight division a lot. And it's put the best cruiserweights in the world against each other. Well, the WBC, who seems to run by its own rules and seems to like to think that they are the sport of boxing, and don't get me wrong, Mauricio Suleiman is trying his hardest to be successful with the WBC, following his pops, Jose Suleiman. Taking that into consideration, the WBC has supported and put together a WBC welterweight tournament. Now, the first elimination fights will be taking place on April 27th. As a matter of fact, today, based on the fans, they will tell us around noontime today what the first matchups are. But they announced who the fighters are. And it's actually a pretty good selection of fighters. Now, these names are going to be names that you probably have not heard of, But in a way, I like the fact that it's giving some of these young fighters an opportunity to fight and advance. And the best part is they're actually fighting against good or / equal competition, which is something that I feel does not take place enough today. So let me just give you the fighters that have been selected. Felix Diaz, who's a former world title challenger. He's got a record of 19-2 with 9 knockouts. Chris Van Herden, who's also an established fighter, 25 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. Frederick Lawson, who's a top-ranked fighter, 26-1 with 21 knockouts. Russian fighter, undefeated at 8-0 with 6 knockouts. Radzab Budaev, and also a tough fighter who had a lot of promise here in the States, Brad Solomon. He's involved, 27-1 with 9 knockouts, out of your state of Georgia. Timo Schwarzkopf, 18-1 with 10 knockouts out of Germany. Derek Cuvas, who's 16-0 out of Puerto Rico. And out of China, Bashimbo Nasiwula, who's 13-1. Now, they also, like the other tournaments, have alternates. And the 4 alternates that have been assigned, Mauricio Pintor, who's 20 wins, 3 losses, and a draw. Paddy Gallagher, who's 13-3 out of Northern Ireland. Sergio Lubkaevich, who's 7-0 out of Russia. And Francisco Santana, who's a known fighter, 26-6. So I like the fighters in this tournament, Sal. It seems to be a younger group for the most part, and the tournament's the same feel as the WBSS in terms of they're going to get their first fights. They're going to know who they're fighting in the first round, and after that, it's who won, and then you get to move on to fight somebody else. I like the fact that we got some American fighters in the mix. There are a couple, yes. But I think it still shows that the majority of the fighters that are willing to take the risk are generally fighters that do not reside in the United States. What's your thoughts on this tournament and the fact that, again, we only have a handful of United States representation here in this tournament?
Well, you're not going to see a Keith Thurman in this tournament, and we know why, and everything else. But I think this is an ideal model and an ideal tournament to introduce or to showcase some future good stars that can come up the ranks and that can get in a position on a fast track for the notoriety and recognition that they were looking for. I mean, I'll tell you what I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think ESPN was the grandfather of all this back in the 80s. They started an ESPN tournament on Thursday nights, and they would have, for a lot of the weight classes, they would recognize their own champion. And a lot of these guys that were winning these fights, including, I think it was James Broadaxe Broad, and they were on a fast track after they were dubbed a champion or so. And they either got an opportunity to put up or to shut up. And so I love these kind of models and these kind of tournaments that go on. And like I said, you're not going to get any world champions or big top contenders that might want to throw their hat in the ring because they're already leveraged for what everybody's striving for, trying to be in a position for. But this is a great way to get some fighters back on track or back in a fast lane to get up to that point to be considered a contender for the title.
Well, in this particular tournament, unlike the World Boxing Super Series tournament, where they did take world title holders,
yes,
which I enjoyed, and to me that really shows the whats of the fighters.
Yes,
this is taking that another level fighter below. They're not jeopardizing a world title holder to put his title on the line, and they're looking at that next level or even a level below that, maybe the C level. But what makes these tournaments so interesting, in my opinion, Sal, is when they put their titles on the line and they're trying to show you that the main idea is to prove that they're the best. Forget about the title. Once again, the United States fighters are reluctant to do that.
Well, they're not going to do it because they're never. In other words, if you're a champion, you've got a belt. You don't have anything to prove in your mind or with your camp's mind. You're not going to be advised to enter the tournament because guess what? If you're a world champion, you're in the driver's seat. You make your mandatory every 6 months. You do what you got to do. You don't have to risk anything other than what you're supposed to do, and that's face the number one ranked contender in the world every couple of months. And there's no need, there's no incentive, there's no why wreck a good thing for whatever reason. So, but what does that do? It opens up the vat to have all those striving to get in that position for a title fight. That tier down, that not tier, but the next tier down from the world champion would be the fighters that throw their hat into the ring on this level. As I was suggesting, even with the ESPN or what we have now. So I think it's a great way to showcase and show some of the talent out there that needs to be recognized and wants a fast track to the title shot. I think it's a great little formula.
Well, they'll definitely get a fast track to the WBC belt. That's for sure. But and that's the only. See, that's what I like about the World Boxing Super Series tournament better because it wasn't focused on one. The WBC is focused on themselves. So in their mind, the only world champion is the WBC champion. Nobody else exists to them. They don't even rank the other fighters, so which, is not realistic. That's why when people ask me about rankings and I say, well, the best ranking system is the IBO, and the people look at me like I got three heads. Well, any organization that will rank based on a computer ranking and their own champion is not their number one fighter shows me that there's some honesty there. And that's what you get with the IBO. But in any event. Don't forget, we're not doing a live show tomorrow, but we will be back on Wednesday and throughout the rest of the week. And we will let you know about a post-fight show on Saturday following the Deontay Wilder-Luis Ortiz fight from the Barclays Center. Chances are we will not do it because Sergey Kovalev is also fighting that night, after Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz. So just give me the next 24 hours to consult with Sal, and we'll see what we can come up with. But on this day, February 26th, in boxing history, in 2005, Fabricio Tizzazo knocks out Darius Michalczewski in the 6th round to retain his WBA World Light Heavyweight title, and that took place in Germany on this day in 2005. On this day in 1994, Steve Little wins a 12-round decision over Michael Nunn to win the WBA World Super Middleweight title. It took place in London. On this day in 1915, Jeff Smith wins a 20-round decision over Mick King to regain the Australian World Middleweight title. That took place in Sydney. On this day in 1926, Tiger Flowers wins a 15-round decision over Harry Greb to win the World Middleweight title, and that took place at Madison Square Garden in New York City. So obviously I was wrong. Tiger Flowers was not the guy who fought Gene Fulmer. I'm getting him confused with someone else because Gene Fulmer. Maybe
Dick Tiger.
Dick Tiger, yeah, that's who it was. I knew it was a tiger.
See, I knew there was a tank.
I knew there was a tiger in the tank. But anyway, on this day, see, that's why we keep you around, Sal. Aside from your ridiculous aside from your ridiculous Deontay Wilder statements, sometimes you come up with pretty good stuff. On this day in the year 2000, Oscar De La Hoya knocks out Darrell Coley in the 7th round at Madison Square Garden. De La Hoya was subsequently awarded the vacant WBC World welterweight title. That's another thing I can't stand, when sanctioning bodies subsequently award their belt to somebody, and Oscar was the beneficiary of that on this day in the year 2000. And finally, on this day, February 26th, in 1984, Rocky Lockridge knocks out
my man
Roger Mayweather in the very first round to win the WBA World Junior Lightweight title, and that took place in Texas on this day in 1984. So a lot of stuff happening in the world of boxing on this day in years gone past. But don't forget, we're not here live tomorrow. We'll give you a chance to catch up on some shows you may have missed. But we will be back on Wednesday. So make sure you tune in Wednesday morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.